be onto something there, lady. All right, you ready?
Yep.
Let's do this damn thing. All right.
Welcome to the TLC show, Hollywood Vibes, Sports and Life with your host, Traci Lynn. This show is brought to you by Quest Nutrition. Cheat, clean, and make healthy eating fun with Quest Nutrition products. Buzz Pop cocktails are the indulgent cocktail with a healthy twist.
Good evening. Welcome to the show this evening, the TLC Unleashed show, Hollywood Vibes, Sports and Life with your host, Traci Lynn. We are live in the studio. We had a few adventures getting here, and as you guys can see from Facebook, not only is he a mastermind of a man, Dino, he is very resourceful as well. I would like to welcome to the show my friend and amazing man, Dino Zografos.
Zografos. Hey, Traci, how are you?
I'm
Thanks
fantastic.
for having me on.
Oh, well, this has been years in the making. I've wanted to have you on the show for a very long time. We also have special guests as well. We have an ex-Navy SEAL, Joe, will be calling into the show. Also, specialist Dr. Bart Billings, amazing man. And we are sponsored by Quest Nutrition and Buzz Pop Cocktails. So we are going to be actually sampling the Buzz Pop. I think we kind of just, maybe after the excursion we just went through, you might want to sample this now. So
I would love to, after what we've been through.
Buzz Pop cocktails, these are amazing. They're basically, we have them at all these events, special red carpets, and so you just want to try that. It's infused with vodka, fresh fruit, gluten-free. It's also made with delicious pure vodka, Dino's favorite.
Ooh, Moscow Mule.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hold
Very
that
good.
baby up. What do you think? It's a sipping cocktail right now. As you can tell, in California, it's about 87 degrees out today. And
Hottest Thanksgiving ever.
yes. You like it?
It's great. It's really, really good.
Yeah, these are amazing. So we're hoping to actually maybe bring them on to Dino's special event that he has coming up on the 6th or 7th.
Yes, it's December 6th. It's
Okay.
my annual Christmas dinner that I have.
Yep.
Special Operations Christmas Dinner, and it's always a fundraiser. I try to make it a fundraiser. And this year it's going to be a fundraiser for 3 officers that have come into dire need in the last year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing, but
I love that you give back and always, giving back to the community. And I'm not sure if our other guests are joined in, but if they are, I'd like to welcome you to the show. And if not, so we just want to introduce Dino to the show. And Dino, tell us what your titles are. I mean, you have an incredible job. Talk about never a dull moment or a boring job.
yeah, well, I'm the senior officer, or the second senior officer in the San Francisco Police Department Bomb Squad, or in the police department in general. The senior officer for special operations and the bomb squad commander right now. So
So a boring job.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's never a dull moment in my life. So.
Oh my gosh. And how long have you been doing this for, Dino?
36 years now.
30?
35 have been in special operations out of my 36, yes.
Wow. And that's a type of job where do you decide all of a sudden, this is what I'm going to do for a living? Because, that's not just something you jump into. Hey, we do half a year schooling and now we're in charge of the bomb squad.
Yeah, well, the police department was something I came into. I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. Growing up, I used to race cars, motorcycles, professionally drag race. And I always wanted a job that would kind of keep it going, keep the thrill on. It's that adrenaline junkie thing. And so I became a police officer, and then from there I had to take it to the next step, and special operations was that step. And that's where I've been ever since.
Amazing, amazing. I feel always so well protected when I'm with Dino, especially when we can be resourceful and use can openers to, make sure we get through windows so that we can get here. So it was actually quite a bit of a challenge, but we did it.
Hey, we made it. The show must go on.
Thanks to the guys in Manhattan Beach for lending us a can opener from the restaurant there to get the window open. So never a dull moment. I'd like to welcome, I have a guest. Who do we have on? Welcome.
Hello?
Hi, is this Joe?
Yes, it is.
How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good. How are you, Traci?
Good. Welcome to the show. So I'd like to introduce my next guest to the show tonight. We have an ex-Navy SEAL. His name is Joe. We're keeping his name anonymous, so we're going to call him Joe for the evening. And Joe, let's talk about a little bit about your background and how long you were a Navy SEAL for.
I was in the Navy SEAL teams for about 7 years.
Mm-hmm. And you've been out for a little bit of time now?
Yeah, I've been out a little bit over 10 years.
Okay. And I would like to kind of segue into what my next guest and who he'll be is Dr. Bart Billings. He's actually the author, and he's an ex-Army colonel. He was the author of Invisible Scars, which is a phenomenal book. If you can pick it up on Amazon, you can read it. It's talking about post-traumatic stress. We don't call it post-traumatic stress disorder with Dr. Bart Billings when he's here because it's not about being a disorder. It's about actually being a symptom. So we'll get deeper into that once we get Bart Billings on the line. And so Joe, let's talk a little bit about your career. And I mean, that's a long time that you were in the service for. And you're transitioning still back into civilization, into normal land, as we'd like to say it, for the last 10 years now. How's that been going for you?
It's been a little rough. You first get out, and I was forced out because of injuries occurred. I was an athlete when I was younger, and then kind of like Dino was saying, I was an adrenaline junkie, always sports and fast things. So, I wanted to try my hand at being one of the world's best, and went to SEAL teams. So, for me, it was
Hi, Doctor. This is
then my career was forced because of some injuries, and I got out feeling pretty good and pretty confident about myself. I was educated and started moving through life, and 3-4 years down the road is when I started to have some of the problems that I'm dealing with physically and mentally. Felt like a tough guy, and had the ego and all that going, and then all of a sudden some of those other things set in, and you're not quite sure to ask for help and who to turn to, and your ego's telling you that you can still push through it and figure out a way to get past, and finally it gets bad enough where either something bad's going to happen or you're going to ask for help, and so that's kind of where I'm at in my life now.
Wow. Well, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, also being a friend of yours and knowing your story and seeing your story and seeing you during that time, throughout this time and through, the last 10 years as well, what life has been like for you. So we wanted to be candid and open so that we can educate and provide knowledge for the world so that we can, really just show what it's like to be, somebody battling for this country and what you've been through. So, and we want to talk about the side effects and the symptoms and the post-traumatic stuff that you've been dealing with over the years. So we're going to dive into it. We're trying to connect with Dr. Bart Billings on the phone. I'd like to go back to Dino and just follow up a little bit on his career and what it's been like. I mean, the biggest question I have for you, and I never asked you in the full time that I've known you, it's been, a few years.
Quite a few years.
Maybe like 24, 25, 26, something
Yep.
like that. And being only 30, I mean, wow, we've known each other since I was like 4.
Good one, I like it.
Yeah, right.
Make you feel good.
So, what has been the craziest experience on the job for you where it's just like, one of those experiences where you go, I didn't think I was going to come out of this alive?
There's been plenty. People, you go out and you meet people and you have relationships, and it's one of the questions that is quite frequently asked a lot. And it's because people are intrigued by what you do. Mm-hmm. I always try to dig in and find one. And my colleagues probably could vouch for the same thing. I try to stay away from them. I mean, I will find one for you and I will tell you one. Mm-hmm. But you try to stay away from them because I think that you don't like to share those things. You want to share happiness with people. You want to share funny things. I mean, you know me. We go way back and we're always laughing. We can't stop laughing.
Yeah.
And I think it's because in our careers we see so many terrible, terrible things that we typically don't like to share them. Yeah. And it's hard to pull out that one because you try to take them and put put them away. They go away in your memory. You don't want them to be there. And you don't want the public to really know what goes on there. Of course, they're exposed through the news channels and whatever the media puts out there. There are a ton. I try to find the fun ones. One of the craziest ones that just comes off the top of my head is when I first became a bomb technician, and I went on one of my first runs. And the way the story goes is police officers, patrol officers go to the runs first that are dispatched. And they ended up going to a dead body call. It was in a hotel, and the hotel people know you get that smell of a dead body. And so the officers were there, and sure enough, it was a dead body. They found him in the room. But when they opened his door with a pass key, he was laying there. He was a hoarder. And all the material in the house went literally from floor to roof. Just a little bit of room to crawl around on the top. And he had died feet first at the doorway, whether he knew he was going to die, like he felt something medical, whatever. We couldn't ever determine it. And he ended up dying there. So when the officers opened the door, there he was, laying almost straight up, in a straight up position.
Wow.
But next to him was a book called the Anarchist Cookbook. It's a famous book for people that like to dabble in things they shouldn't be dabbling in, explosives and things like that. And they found it and they figured, oh, this guy might be making explosive items or whatever. And they were too scared to go inside. First of all, it was hard to get through the place, but they were too scared, so they called us in the bomb squad. Well, me being the young guy and the newest guy, so I get the job. So I had to go past him, and he was decayed like crazy and whatnot, and crawl up through whatever I can crawl through to make sure that there was no explosive devices in the place. When I left, I came out and I told my boss and everybody that was outside the building, because it was all evacuated, everything is good. I didn't find anything. And my boss looked at me with a little shy smile and said, "Did you check him out to make sure he wasn't booby-trapped?" And I said, "No, I didn't." So he goes, "Well, you better go in there and do it. How are you going to do it?" And I said, "I know how I'm going to do it." So I asked the fire department for a long rope. I went back upstairs and I tied a noose around this guy's ankles, and I went a floor down and I yanked him. And I thought the whole body was going to come out. Well, when I felt the tugging go away and I had to go up and validate what I had just done, I didn't realize, but I pulled him apart. And it was one of the most horrendous things you ever had to see in your life. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I mean, for us, that's like movies.
It's
That's
like
like
movies. Yeah.
Hollywood, movies like horror films and action and suspense and thrillers and dramas. For you, this is real life. This is day to day.
It's everyday stuff. Yeah.
How do you deal with the stress of this? Because I mean, this is not normal to see stuff like this. How do you cope with the stress? Do you know?
It isn't normal, and what you try to do is you put it away. In a weird way, you try to normalize it, even though it's nowhere near normal. But I try to find the humor in it every day. I teach at the academy now. I teach special things for the officers when they're about to go out on the street. And when I close out with them, one of the things I tell them to do is the job itself will always give you things that you're not ready for, and terrible things, again, as I start off the segment, that you will see. You have no control over that. It's going to be handed to you. It's just a part of the job that you sign off for. But at the end of the day, if you could find something humorous, it might seem like something very minuscule to you at the time. Something like you ever have somebody tell you a story at the bar and you're looking at him like, I don't find no humor in that, but he or she are laughing like it's...
That's his all and be all, yeah.
That's
and
correct.
He's giving that to everyone.
That's right. But if they could just channel that stuff and make it funny in one way or another, it kind of helps out. It kind of really, really helps out. Talking about it, people will say talking about it is a great thing. You can only talk about it if you talk about it to somebody who understands what it is that you're going through. So, and that's usually fellow officers. This is the infamous get off work, go decompress somewhere, have an adult beverage, and talk about what you went through for the day. But not something you want to go home and share really on a normal basis. Not normal.
Absolutely. Well, I would like to thank you for sharing that with, and it's interesting because I've been friends with you for so long, but again, I see the fun side and the lively side and the energetic and the passionate side of you, and I never want to pull that in. So this has been the first time that I've ever actually been, in a position where I'm able to ask you questions like this candidly, because I love the fun Dino, and I'm the same way too. Life's always so serious, working hard, hustling to get to where I need to be in my business and life, and being a mom and stuff like that. So this is a very interesting time for us because in our friendship, and so we can actually talk about stuff like this, because this is to educate people and let you guys know that we deal with stress in certain ways, and we're going to talk about this and go dive into it further today with Dr. Billings on the phone. I would like to welcome him to the show. Welcome to the show, Dr. Bart Billings.
Thank you very much.
So glad you could be here today. I would like to introduce you to Dino Zografos.
Hello, doctor.
How you doing?
Great, thank you.
Bomb Squad Commander and Special Forces. We also have on the phone ex-Navy SEAL Joe. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Bart Billings.
Hello.
Hello, doctor.
What an incredible opportunity to bring these three amazing men together. The experienced Dr. Bart Billings is also an ex-Army colonel. He's also a psychologist. He's written the book and author of The Invisible Scars. And I know he speaks worldwide. I've seen him speak on a few occasions. And the knowledge that you have, Dr. Billings, is just phenomenal. So thank you for sharing it with our audience tonight.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed listening to what you were just talking about.
Thank you. Well, we're talking about the day-to-day, what seems, maybe normal to Joe and maybe normal to Dino, but not normal to the rest of the world because we've never experienced things like this. And what I really, really like and appreciate about you, Dr. Billings, is that you speak about post-traumatic stress disorders we've known in society, PTSD. I like how you call it PTS, or post-traumatic stress, because it is not a disorder. I'd like you to share with us what that means to you and why you labeled it the post-traumatic stress rather than a disorder.
Well, what you have to realize is that, and the two gentlemen on the phone realize this, whenever you're in a situation that's not a normal situation, you will have normal reactions, which to people looking at you don't understand that these are normal reactions, whether it's anxiety, hypervigilance, nightmares, etc. These are normal reactions of being in an abnormal environment. So whether you're a police officer, fireman in combat, or just somebody who's in a car accident, had some emergency surgery, that's not a normal situation, and you're going to have a normal reaction to that abnormal situation. In combat, I say, and I put 34 years in the military, and I've seen at just about every aspect, what you have is 99% of people go to combat have a normal reaction to a very abnormal environment. Even the basic training itself is not normal for people. They don't go through the kind of training even before combat. And that's why you see things like, Full Metal Jacket, the movie, it showed the guy committing suicide. Well, he was having post-traumatic stress reaction to being in that basic training environment, and people, if you don't recognize it and don't know how to deal with it, then it can get worse. That's when usually it interferes with your life and it becomes quote unquote a disorder. And hopefully, you can deal with it before then. People need to be aware of it. And one of the things I remind people, you don't want to label people with a psychiatric label, that there's something wrong with them. In World War II, people had battle fatigue. They didn't call it battle fatigue disorder. Battle fatigue was a normal reaction. They got tired of fighting, and you give them enough time, and they figure out how to get back to normal. In World War II, they had a lot more time between combat and when they came back to be a civilian. Now, the luxury of the time is not there, so it's much more difficult. But yeah, it's a normal reaction. And one of the bad things that's happening is when people are having a normal reaction to an abnormal environment, getting back to their normal life, doing things, and I call it integrative treatment, integrative wellness, as you described before, finding that body, and that's not a normal situation. You have might have some nightmares from it, but you're using humor. I use humor when I do therapy with people. That's when you're laughing, you can't be sad at the same time.
Yep.
It's called reciprocal inhibition.
That's
For a
right.
fancy word for it, but that's what it's called. You can't have two emotions going at the same time. So it's good to find the lighter moments, the two good things as a result of a bad thing. The maybe exercise, the yoga, the imagery. I mean, there's a whole bunch, dozens of integrative treatment things that you can do. Like I said, from Pilates to yoga to guided imagery to peer groups, etc. So, post-traumatic stress is a normal reaction. The problem is they are drugging these people with brain-altering psychiatric medications. That is disastrous because these medications all have black box warnings, antidepressants, antipsychotics, anti-anxieties, and the first side effect in a black box means this is the worst drug you can possibly take for a reaction that can kill you. The first adverse reaction is suicidality. Well, stop and think about 22 veteran suicides a day.
Wow.
That's kind of unusual. Well, what do you think? Do you think there's a relationship? Absolutely. All of the mass shooters, they were all on psychiatric meds. Did you know that? Not many people knew that because it's well hidden. These two latest shootings, the one in Las Vegas, the one in Texas, both those people were on psychiatric meds, either prior or during the event. So in my book, Invisible Scars, I list the names of the mass shooters, many of them, and I list the psychiatric meds, the brain-altering meds they were on, and where the shootings took place. So when I see PTSD, if somebody comes to me, a patient, and they've already been labeled PTSD, I don't see the D as a disorder anymore. I see it as post-traumatic stress drugged. They're drugged.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to bring Joe into this piece of conversation right now because Joe's experience being on the prescription medications, and let's talk about how you were first prescribed these medications, Joe, when you came out of the SEAL team, and what they were, if you care to talk about that, and
Sure.
And kind of what happened for you from there on.
So initially, probably the first 3-4 years, I started to have some anxiety and just some extra energy that would be built up through the day, and I would find that it would distract me or I'd just get really amped up. So initially, I was given clonazepam, and then I was given trazodone for sleep. And in my dreams, I was dreaming of combat every night. And this will sound strange, but they weren't nightmares. It was always me fighting. And it was either in a fist fight, a knife fight, or a gunfight. And then, so I really was never getting quality sleep. So when I would take trazodone, it literally would kind of drug me, through the night. And kind of wake over with that hangover feeling in the morning because it actually has an asthmatic in it. So you kind of, if you take a bunch of Benadryl, you kind of get that feeling in the morning. So that went on for, several years. And then I've also had a bunch of orthopedic issues. So then I was put on 2 different types of pain medication along with clonazepam and also trazodone, which the doctor can tell you is a no-no, and most people die from that combination of a cocktail. I was on that medication for about 7 years. About a year ago, I decided to go completely clean and come off that medication. And then what happened was had a really big anxiety disorder. But the problem is I've been, diagnosed and misdiagnosed probably about 6 or 7 times. Like the doctor's talking about labeling. I've had PTSD listed. I've had depression. I've had schizophrenia. And every time one of these happened, I was given a new medication, whether it was an SSRI, lithium, something to drug me. And all this time, I'm still taking pain medication. I'm still, so there's this huge cocktail of what's going on. And when, I finally decided to get clean and got a doctor, we're like, hey, we need to just see, what you're like on a daily basis without taking any drugs and what's going on. And I'm still going through this right now. I'm basically clean off of all of that stuff, and I'm having nightmares, and I have what they call a tension headache every day, which they think it's from depression. It can be from sleep anxiety, but it feels like a halo around my head, and it's the worst in the morning. It's super intense and like a migraine, and I'm thinking all negative thoughts, thinking combat thoughts, thinking
Hello?
kind of as I get up and go through the day, it's better. But it's always present. It's just lighter. And the first thing the VA wants to do is, give you more drugs.
Right.
Can I interject something?
Yeah, please do.
Get my book and read it, please. Get the book, Invisible Scars. There's solutions to your problem. One of the top people in the country, I run the big International Combat Stress Conference, actually for 24 years. Stanley Krippner is an expert on nightmares. 2 sessions and your nightmares are gone. It's incredible with the integrative treatments, all the different kind of treatments that deal with this. But you're very fortunate. One of the things I discovered when I did research for the book, there's a neurologist here in San Diego, Fred Bauman. He's a top neurologist, and I had him look into dead in beds. He identified, and this was years ago, over 400 military people on multiple psychiatric meds like you were on, who went to sleep and never woke up. Died in their sleep, their heart just stopped.
Yeah.
You're very, very lucky. You're very lucky something bad didn't happen to you. That's a perfect storm for either dead in bed or suicide or homicide, that you were on those drugs.
Yeah.
Doctor, this is Dino, and I want to ask you a question because it's kind of a topic that's coming now in the police department. It's really starting to show its face value. Now, we know about it with the military, but it's been talked about a lot about the police department personnel and emergency services personnel, fire, ambulance. It seems like it's something that nobody wants to touch because of the potential monetary value that would incur to cities and counties and government agencies to deal with this problem. And do you see a direct correlation with emergency services personnel also, as well as military?
Okay. I'm glad you asked that. I just worked with a fireman. And it's kind of ironic. He was in charge of the brigade or the whole area of firemen. And he was in a fire, and electric wire came across his head and resulted in some brain damage. What happened to him afterwards is, again, traditionally, he went back to work, but he was on all different kind of medications. Fate was in store for him to change his life. He came to the library. My wife volunteers at the police station. She does fingerprinting. His wife works there. And when I wrote the book, Invisible Scars, my wife was talking to his wife and said, "Oh, your husband's having problems. Have him come to the book signing at the library." And I did an hour talk, and I signed some books. And afterwards, he came up to me and he said, "I felt like you were talking to me." And I said, "Oh, really?" And I said, "That's great. It's always great when you feel like I'm talking to you." And he said, "I'm going to get your book." 3 weeks later, he contacted me, and he said, "I was ready to commit suicide. I just want to tell you, your book saved my life."
Wow.
And if you go on the book website, which is BartBillings.com, and I'm not trying to sell books. I'm trying to save lives.
I understand.
Because all the money that the book generates actually goes to a scholarship fund for kids that are in college that lost a parent in combat. So the book has been saving lives. It saved his life. If you go to the book website, click on Buy Book, read the reviews of the book. His is one of the first reviews that says, "This book saved my life." Now, recently, and And it works for firemen, it works for police officers, it works for anybody. The book, what the Marines are doing, here's another example that you can take this to the bank. I had a call from the Marine Corps League. Right now he's the chief of staff, and he called me out of the blue. I didn't know him from anybody, and he said, I just read the first 25 pages of your book. I said, well, that's nice. I'm happy you called me and told me you read it. And I'm thinking, oh God, he only read 25 pages. I got no criticism. It's all 5 stars. This is the first one, because he didn't read any more than 25 pages. He said, I read 25 pages, and next to the Bible, it's the best book I will ever read. What he did with the book, and this is growing by leaps and bounds, he decided to do an Invisible Scars peer group book club. He started off with 22 people. Every week they discuss a chapter in the book. Now, they're required to be part of the group. They read one chapter every 2 weeks, but for those 2 weeks, they discuss that chapter in depth, and then they move on. I got an email from him about a week ago with a picture of all of the guys, and they're holding a flag, and it said, this book has saved 2 lives in this group. And we are all signing the flag and sending it to you. Now they keep ordering, and I make sure they get it for cost from the publisher. Hundreds of books are going, and the Marines are doing here in the Visible Scars peer group book clubs. And the reason it's so effective, they have a guide. They have a guide. Most groups, most people who do groups in the military, they don't know where they're going with that group. They have a guide. They know exactly where they're going. I got a call one day from them, and he said, you scared the hell out of my Marines. I said, well, how'd I do that? I wasn't even there. Well, we were on chapter 4, and you talk about dead in bed, and that scared the hell out of some of my Marines, because some of them are multiple meds. So, yes, it works for firemen. It works, like I said, the Combat Stress Conference, we've had SWAT people there. We've had FBI people, and we discussed these same problems.
Well, I'd like to ask you, Dr. Bart Billings, and thank you so much. And again, I haven't read the book myself, but I am definitely going to be getting a copy, and I look forward to both Dino and Joe reading it as well, and the rest of the world. I'd like to know what you think would be the top things that we could utilize, that you can extract from the book, that would be the top things in order to change these lives and help them through these tough times right now.
Okay, I know a Navy SEAL by the name of Miguel Vega. Either one of you guys know Miguel?
I do not.
Okay, he's up in LA. He started a program for veterans. When he came back from combat, he said, I almost got killed several different ways in combat. He said, but nothing approached killing me like the drugs that the VA gave me. And he said, I realized I was dying, they were killing me, and I had to stop. And he did stop, and he got on a program, and an integrative treatment program. He put it together for veterans in Los Angeles. Google Miguel Vega. He's a retired Navy SEAL. One of the neatest guys you're going to ever run into. What you can get out of the book, I already told you one thing. Post-traumatic stress is a normal reaction to being in an abnormal environment. There's a bill hopefully going through John McCain's office, which is going to say a veteran will have the right to be told what alternatives there are to psychiatric medication. That will be law before too long. The other thing, and so the first thing you got to say is, hey, I don't want drugs. I don't want brain-altering medications. Tell me what the integrative treatment programs are in the community here, in your programs. I want to be involved in an integrative treatment program, an integrated wellness program. That's the first thing. All vets should know they have a right to ask for that. Whether it's the VA, whether it's in the military, they have a right to ask for integrative treatment instead of drugging. Number 2, if you have a head injury, and this is critical, if you have a head injury from combat, or head injury in general, your potential to commit suicide just from a head injury is 4 times more than the general population.
Wow.
4 times more, just from the head injury. I've had people had head injuries, they say, I'm just sitting there watching television, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, I should just kill myself. And it's like, where did that thought come from? No drugs, nothing. Now, and if you have a head injury, there's accompanying things that come along with a head injury. There's frustration because you're forgetting things. There's depression. And depression's a normal reaction too to life situations. It's kind of a band-aid until you get stronger and move forward. It relieves pain, actually, depression. But you can't be depressed too long. It's kind of like when I worked at the medical school in physical medicine rehab. You know, if I go into a room and there's a newly injured paraplegic in the room, they're depressed. Well, of course they're depressed because the pain of realizing you're not going to walk again is so overwhelming. The depression builds that pain. So when people say, oh, go see this patient, he's depressed. Well, tell me. That's normal. He better be depressed or he didn't lose anything.
Yeah.
So now you have a head injury, and you don't have, if you're anxious, if you're frustrated, you don't have a psychiatric problem. You have a residual effect of a head injury. And that's normal, and everybody needs to know it, and here's how to deal with this, and yeah, I expect this to happen to you, and you can keep notebooks, you can do this if you're forgetting, keep a log. But the worst thing that happens is they are seen as having a psychiatric problem. So who do they get referred to? A psychiatrist or a psychologist who supports brain-altering psychiatric meds. Now you have somebody who has 4 times potential to commit suicide, and I'm going to give you a drug that the first side effect is suicidality.
Wow.
You multiply that 4 exponentially by what? 4, 8, 12, 16?
Right.
And I say, you know, I was on a talk sports show with Hacksaw Reynolds here in San Diego, Hacksaw Hamilton in San Diego, and after Junior Seau committed suicide, he said, Doc, why do you think he committed suicide? I asked CTE. He said, so how do you know that? You didn't do an autopsy. You can't say that. He said, yeah, 100% of people in the National Football League, and I work with players, have CTE. 100%. It's a normal reaction to being in that kind of environment. It's part of the sport, CTE, and depending